Wrong.
Ready, set, go.
All right, let's go.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of NC Raw. We got some familiar faces at the table today. Miss Ginger, Living Proofware.
That's right.
Johnny, Mother effing Kennedy.
Yep.
Before we get started, my camera is shaking. Before we get started, be careful on those tables. I want to give a shout out. I want to give some love to the 4 people who jumped on board our Patreon page. The first 24 hours it was live.
Awesome.
I want to give them a shout out and let them know how grateful we are for the support, that they found enough value in my ramblings and Bubba the Love Sponge stories that they decided to throw a couple dollars towards NC Raw to get us into our own personal home space. My girl Gladys Ross, Lori Ross, good friend. Shout out to Lori. Matt Bryant, Mad Meal Preps.
Oh, yeah.
Give him some love. Check out his food.
Oh, it's amazing. I wish I could afford to do all
Order
that.
some food. His mother, Carmen Lynn Bryant,
Wow.
who I chatted with today through the Patreon page. She's enjoying the show. And last but not least, a classmate, Wynette Wiles. Want to give all 4 of you guys mad love for supporting NC Raw.
And I want to say to all 4 of you, if you want one of my Living Proofware shirts for being a patron, then let us know, let Steve know, and we'll make sure you get one.
Boom. How about that?
Bam,
Done.
because we do this together.
So what's been going on, Ginger? It's been a while since you've been at this table. What did you tell me when you first walked in the door about the 7s?
Oh, yeah. So I get to say this again. Johnny.
Did you already hear this, Johnny?
No. Just what he was talking about a minute ago. So I was on episode number 7. Now I think it's so ironic that I'm on episode number 57.
Like, I heard a rumor, though. Like, there've been a lot of episodes, a lot of really popular people on the podcast, but I heard you were the best. That's what I heard.
I'm not saying I'm the best, because there have been some amazing, phenomenal people on these podcasts. Well, everyone that's been on here, have had some amazing, phenomenal stories.
But you have some statistics, some mathematical numbers behind your dominance.
She brought the data.
She brought the data.
I always bring the data. So yeah, my podcast, but I have a social media following too.
Don't hold back, sweetie.
So so I was on episode number 7, episode number 57. My episode number 7 has hit 7.2K views.
I haven't looked in a while. So far back.
So
there.
You haven't looked in a...
I looked at it.
I get up every morning.
Shut the front door. I looked at it the other day, and it's like 7.286 or something. So it's probably headed to 7.3.
Half of them is me. Half
Cranking
of me. I'm
up
just
there.
trying to be your biggest fan, Ginger.
No. But, and I really don't know.
What do you mean
and I wasn't able to boost it because it's a personal page. So everyone thinks, oh, you boosted it. That's why.
Who would say
so
that? Who
I
would say
really
that?
don't know how it hit so high, other than the people that already follow me and watch my stuff. And like, I have some really strong supporters.
Well, you can also like hire like a tech company from like India or Japan
Yes.
just to watch it over and
You
over.
could pay
and
for
over again.
views.
You can
Yeah,
pay
it could
for
be like
views.
Scandal, and where they did that whole Google thing where they made themselves the most wanted
But
person to
honestly,
look up.
I think it's just because you're number one.
Johnny Kennedy, have you gone back and watched that episode?
How many times have I seen that
Oh,
thing?
shut the front door. Have you really watched it? Have you
It'd
even
be like
watched it?
Cinnamon will be
I
like
think I did send it to
Cinnamon
you,
will be
but
like,
didn't.
what do you want to watch tonight before we go to sleep?
Oh my Jesus!
It's an Egg Eaters hype video.
Yeah.
Not that thing again, sweetie. Oh yeah.
I need to know more about her. I need to know word for word what she says. But have you ever really truly watched the whole thing through? I think you did when we first started. When we first met, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I watched it. You were like, you better watch it, or else I'll kick you.
I'm not talking to you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to help you. And I will say that the relationship that Johnny Kennedy and I have is plugged through a substance use disorder presentation, an exhibit that he's planning to do. I'm going to let him, I'm going to let you
Great.
plug that in just a minute. But before I get into my spiel and what I came to talk about tonight, I just need to take a moment to say a prayer, honestly, here at this place over Caleb McCoy and his family. Caleb has been a co-host and founding father with Stephen Steen
Yes.
of NC Raw, and here since day one. And I would never speak on this if I didn't know the intent and purpose of Caleb's desire to break the stigma. And I think it takes tremendous and amazing courage to come out and say that yesterday he lost his sister to an overdose. She would have been 40 years old this year. And I met his sister this past summer when she was gaining some momentum and some clean time. And she struggled a lot. And I just really honestly want to pray right now for that family. And just say, Father, I just ask that you be with them during this time, that you continue to watch over Ruth and Caleb and Caitlin and all four of Leanne's beautiful children, and that we understand that you are a God that gives and takes away. And we are not skilled to understand what God has willed, what God has planned, but I know that there's always purpose in the pain, always purpose in the loss, and always great victory on the other side of that. And I just praise and thank you that Caleb and Caitlin have become mighty warriors for you, God, that they can bring their family through this on the other side. And I just ask that you give them peace that surpasses all understanding. You watch over them and lead them and guide them and direct them, and that you just be with them during this precious, precious time. It is so hard for us to understand loss here on earth, but we know that there's reasons for it in heavenly places, Lord. And I just thank you for all that you've done for us and the amazing gift that you've given us through Caleb and Caitlin's sobriety, and that you continue to watch over that family. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
So
Thank you, Ginger.
you're welcome. I love Caitlin and Caleb tremendously. He's had a lot of losses this last year and a lot of victories, and that's kind of like where I'm at in my story, a lot of losses and a lot of victories in this last year. And we'll get more into that, but I am going to say that this amazing, funny relationship that Johnny Kennedy and I have comes from an Open Society Foundation on substance use disorder that's here to break the stigma. That we pray that even though in the midst of Caleb planning a wedding and dealing with a funeral, that they will be able to come to the table sometime before he wraps up his oral histories. And that due to having such a phenomenal relationship with a powerhouse
Stephen,
in
thank you.
recovery.
You're more than welcome, Johnny. It's going to be one of those nights.
And who connected, Stephen?
Ginger,
It's okay,
thank you,
it's okay,
thank
it's
you,
okay,
Ginger,
it's okay.
thank you, Ginger. Oof.
It's not me, it's the God in me. Thank you for humility. Anyway, tell them more about, so we're up to about maybe 60 people on deck between stories that you've gotten and you have scheduled. We're looking for 40 more. I want to give you a chance to promo that so that there's people that are listening that'll be like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this.
Yeah, so I'm collecting 100 oral histories. I'm simply sitting down, having a coffee, and having a conversation and just listening. I have no agenda, I have no judgment. My idea is at this moment in time, one of my ideas is that 100 oral histories about people who have experienced addiction, they're either in recovery or they're currently using or anywhere across that, is historically significant at this moment in time when overdose deaths are more, you have more of them than car accidents. So that's just changed. It's historically significant to capture these stories at this moment. It's also great for my punk rock roots, is that I firmly believe the establishment, whether it's the pharmaceutical companies or law enforcement or the medical establishment or the insurance companies or the policymakers, have done a bad job over the last decades with how we deal with addiction. And I'm not doing anything super crazy or
Yet.
radical
Yet.
but I'm listening to 100 stories, around 10 of those people from those stories. We're going to do some portraits. We're going to have a traveling exhibit heavily in Western North Carolina to Raleigh, and hopefully we'll find some sponsors to also sponsor it as we go to Washington, D.C. with it. But I love laughing with Stephen and Ginger, but I also want to say something really nice, is that the core beliefs I have is no different than their core beliefs, which Ginger's core belief is that she sees the humanity in every single person, and everyone she works with, she sees that essence of what makes them human. And Stephen is just like me. We're kindred spirits, and we believe that storytelling, listening, connecting with people's experience, there's nothing more worthwhile to like base a project, a life around than giving yourself over to the community and spending time with them and listening and learning who they are. So I'm not doing anything these guys aren't doing, and I think that's why we're kindred spirits in this project.
Aw, that's
Thank you,
amazing.
Johnny.
And so anyone that wants to get on board, wants to tell their story, even in active addiction, we really, really are seeking stories of people that are still in active addiction. And that's because there's a breakdown in society that does not realize that we are humans, like Johnny said, suffering from a human condition. And there was a time in my life where I wasn't looked at the same way. See, I'm unrecognizable now to my old self, who I used to be. And that's all through the process of recovery. And people look at me today and they're like, there's no way you were strung out on meth and you got all these charges and you did this and you did what? That's not you. They just don't know who I really was and what I would have given for someone to see me through the eyes that people see me through with today, that give me the respect. And I'm still the same person. I've just gone in a different direction. You know, I'm still the same little girl that wants to be loved and paid attention to and wants to have understanding and relationships and friendships. And so it's so important to see the humanity in people who still struggle actively with addiction. And those people in these stories can remain anonymous. They can use a persona, a false name, initials. They can just be the anonymous one that tells their story. And the reason why I encourage anyone who knows someone that's in active addiction to come to the table in this is because those are the stories that we lack, because of the paranoia and the fear of the police and the fear of getting caught and having consequences. But those are the ones that are suffering the most. Like, I remember what it was like to suffer, but I'm not in that same place of suffering. And today, you know, like the situation with Caleb when he talks about breaking the stigma and being honest about his sister overdosing. In the harm reduction world, my first statement is, one dose of Narcan could have saved her life. One dose of Narcan. But there's so much stigma behind Narcan and syringe exchange and harm reduction. And it's like, I encourage those people to come to the table because they have a story to tell about how the hospitals treat them with so much stigma when they go to the hospital for an abscess, and they treat them like they're nothing and they're trash because they're in active addiction. When they seek help for Hep C and they won't give it to them because they're still actively using, because they are treated and physically locked down at Mission Hospital is their protocol for anyone who has endocarditis. And endocarditis comes from not using other people's needles, but from reusing the same needles due to lack of access to syringe exchange or needles or pharmacies who have the power to sell them but want identification, which is illegal, that want to get all in your business and treat you like trash and look down at you when you come to buy syringes, when you're really trying to just stay safe in that place you're at right now. And so I really encourage those people because they have a voice about how they're treated when they go to the hospital with endocarditis, and they spend 5 weeks in the hospital to fight the infection, and then the hospital says, you need a new heart valve, but our doctors aren't going to touch you because you're still in active addiction. So rather than see what they can do to provide treatment or any kind of resources to connect them physically to the recovery process, they turn them back out into the street due to that stigma. So those are the stories that I have heard so much of working in harm reduction and syringe exchange that I really would pray people would find the courage to come to the table on.
I'd raise up even another step, that it's your story is important for you to tell that story and to share that story, but your story is so important for the entire community, because the entire community is not going to hear about this project which we're working on, this collection of stories. But if you tell your story about what you're actually experiencing, how you're interacting with the medical system, how you're interacting with the law system, how you're interacting with the recovery system, and we have people who tell their story, that's going to have a large impact, and you're going to be the voice of your entire community. So
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, and then the ability to, this becomes part of policy building
Yep.
and policy making. So getting more funding for harm reduction, getting more funding for syringe exchange, getting more funding for treatment processes for people to not have to, when someone says, okay, because I work in the field, so when someone comes in, even in the syringe exchange, and says, I'm ready, my window is like this. It's like a window with no hinges.
Yep.
It goes up and it's going straight
Right
back
back
down,
down.
and I better catch it while I can. And then when I say, okay, we can give you help, but you got to go home for 2 weeks and wait for a bed. That's not. What are you doing? You're going home to wait to die? And when I was in syringe exchange, those people were like the ones I was loading up with Narcan, because let me keep you alive, please, until we can get you to that place, and hope that you're still willing to go there when we get there, you know?
Yeah,
So,
we just need a larger conversation, and a very serious conversation with the policymakers and lawmakers. We need more funding for recovery. We need more funding for harm reduction. Steady Collect over in Asheville, because of that issue of zoning, which has been worked out, still lost funding of $15,000, and that was their needle funding. That was their bucket of needle. That's insane. That's the bucket which gets the fallout of this thing, which worked out for them, that they're still able to give needles out, is that they lost $15,000 in needle funding. So, it's time for Western North Carolina to take that lead through stories, through policy, influencing policymakers, working with MAHEC on this, working with North Carolina Harm Reduction, working with Open Society Foundation, looking for these ways which we can influence policy and influence decisions.
Well, there's so many things that are so many awesome things that are taking place in Western North Carolina when
goodness,
it comes
yeah.
to recovery. You've heard so much of it. I've heard so much of it over the last year or so.
The
doing
community is
show.
amazing.
It's thriving,
Yeah.
man. It's thriving. And so my question to you, Johnny Kennedy, is: are the policymakers willing to hear? Are the policymakers willing to listen?
I don't know what the jam is on this, and why people can't just move this thing forward. I don't know what, we'll take a step back. Steady Collective, for example, of policymakers not working with harm reduction, were like, you cannot distribute needles in West Asheville, and they cited them as a shelter rather than 2 hours a week needle exchange. And the insanity of that thing was, by the halfway through last year, they had already got notifications and data on 86 reversals. So they had distributed Narcan, and they had 86 people who did not die because of their Narcan distribution. And so does the city, does it want 86 dead bodies on its street? That's going to kill you.
in Western North Carolina?
In Western North Carolina, that's going to kill your tourist. Beer City is done if you have 86 dead bodies in West Asheville. And so I don't understand this disconnect. I don't understand. They think it's just going to go away if there's no needle exchange. They think it's just going to go away if they ignore people who need beds when they want recovery. They think it's just going to go away by you doing this amazing job with the legal system. Is that it? We're just going to put people in prison and then put them out in the street, and they're going to overdose, and that's our solution? I just don't get it. I don't get what.
Well, so you say things like, are people willing to listen? So part of my story is that I said with 1 year clean, I will be on the Congress room floors in my high heels, changing legislation where drug-related offenses and convicted felons are concerned for employability and other things, and it's grown into more and more and more and more and more. And so I was recently at the summit. You were there with me when someone from the Attorney General's office was there.
Yeah.
And I challenged them, and I mean, I just hate to say it this raw, but like I broke it down like coleslaw, and I was like, look, you want to talk about reentry and you want to talk about all these things that are going on, but you don't want to support what the legal system looks at, what reduces recidivism. So how can I make it a longer period of time before they reoffend, instead of looking at how can we make them successful to not even reoffend, instead of looking at the time span between the time that they reoffend. And so when I said what I said there, you know, I said we don't support them with shelters, with housing, with food stamps, with amenities, with, you know, the basic needs are not fulfilled when people reenter into society. But what we will give them back is the right to vote for that same individual, for that attorney general, for legislation. So you want to give them the right to vote for you back, but you don't want you don't want to give them the opportunity to be successful in that same community. And so that was very hard for me. But doing that provoked a conversation that has now led to an invitation for me to the State Reentry Conference on March 12th. And when we say, are they willing to listen? That's not my question. My question is, are we willing to advocate? Are we willing to fight? Are we willing to be the examples? Are we willing to come to the table and not be aggressive, but be willing to see, okay, so I've done the whole psychology thing. I have an alphabet soup behind my name, you know, since I've gotten clean. And so then I started going to school for criminal justice, and everyone's like, what? What are you doing? And I was like, dude, I do not want to be a cop. Although I totally always thank law enforcement. Every time I see law enforcement, I'm like, thank you for your service. I have built some amazing relationships with law enforcement here in Haywood County, in Buncombe County.
You would scare the pee out of me if you pulled me over.
Shut the front door. So I've built some amazing relationships, and I'm so grateful for them and their kindness and their ability to see us as humans. Like, that's a beautiful thing. But at the same time, it's like, that's not why I started going to school for this. I started going to school for this because, okay, we want them to break the stigma for addiction. We want individuals and law enforcement and legislation and Congress to accept us as humans. We want them to see us as productive members of society, as the ability to, but so if we want to bridge the gap between recovery and law enforcement, I've got to be willing to come to the table with them on their difficulties and what they struggle with. You know, and so how do I do that better than embedding myself into their community? Like, we've advocated at such a level in Western North Carolina that law enforcement, and we can thank people like Richie Tanner Hill for that, you know what I'm saying? Building those relationships with law enforcement that have allowed them to see us as individuals that matter, lives that matter, you know? So we've advocated at such a level that they've come to the table with us. They come to the Western North Carolina Recovery Alliance Summit. So why can't we come to the table with them at like law enforcement summits and policy changing for law enforcement? So for me, and to me, whenever you go to battle, you study your enemy, and not that law enforcement, I don't want them to be my enemy anymore, but I want to understand the ins and outs of what they struggle with. If I'm asking them to understand my struggles as someone suffering from substance use disorder, I have to be willing to understand their struggles. And so it's not about whether or not they'll listen, it's about whether or not we're willing to come to the table and advocate and fight for what we want. And the bottom line is, here I am, pick me, you know, like I'm going to the table, I'm coming to the table. That's what I was meant for, that's what I was called to do, and like, let's get it. Like, I'm pretty, you know, I'm just willing and open, and it takes people like that to be willing to come to the table.
And there's many are too. Many folks here in Western North Carolina that are willing to do that. But there's probably also some underlying fear of just cultivating those relationships and essentially listening to what they need. We go in there, we want to tell them what we need.
Yeah.
But what I heard you say was we need to listen to what they need.
And I need to understand when we ask for things as a recovery community and there's kickback and there's pushback and there's resistance. Like when I go to school for criminal justice, I begin to understand what their reasoning is behind that. So then it's almost like an ace in the hole. It's like, oh, well, I understand that you all struggle with this. So what about this way? I get a better understanding of how to advocate. I become better at building the gap, you know, the bridge between law enforcement and the recovery community and legislation and policy, you know?
We're having Wi-Fi issues again tonight.
Oh, not good.
Yeah, we need
No bueno.
no bueno. Again, another reason why we need to get our own space so I can
So keep supporting us.
so I can pay $1 million to get the highest broadband. Or I need to move to Asheville. That's what I need to do.
Move to Asheville.
That's
Asheville.
absolutely what you need to do.
I know.
Because you do so many amazing events, and I'm like, man, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go, and I'm like
you
so
could probably
far
find
away.
some community center
Yeah.
to like.
It's probably
Post your
coming.
stuff.
We've talked to some folks, and we did a couple of visits out there. Something's happening for sure. Just got to figure out the logistics of driving over the mountain 2 or 3 days a week.
I want to see if I can get you into Asheville on the first weekend of April. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of that thing with the with this music producer coming in.
Oh yeah, we're doing that. For
We'll be
real.
there.
Yeah.
Full
and then-
show. So Ginger, you came bringing gifts today. You came with gifts today.
Oh yes, I did.
You want to go ahead and I'm gonna flip the camera and they're right over your shoulder. But you want to talk a little bit about your
Yeah. We're
about
nowhere
your-
near the end, are we? Because
No.
I got so much to talk about.
my good friend Kendall. She likes to pop in and take some photos for me for our Instagram
That's
and
awesome.
all the other places.
She's amazing.
She
we
is
love her.
amazing.
You always take the best photos.
She does take
When
the
I
best
see
photos.
them online, I'm like, who took the pictures?
That's Kendall, the one and only. Y'all need a room to stay. You need a place to stay on the weekend. You want to visit the mountains, pop into the Comfort Inn, say hello to Kendall. She'll take good care
Comfort
of
Inn
you.
and Suites.
Comfort
yep.
Inn, Silva, North Carolina.
And this is a really nice hotel. It's not what you would think of a
It is a
Comfort
beautiful
Inn.
hotel.
It's a really beautiful hotel.
It is.
Very nice.
Living proof
So,
wear.
Living Proof Wear. That
Thank you,
is
Kendall.
my clothing line I have developed. It's just now coming off the ground. It's
Off the runway.
Yeah, off the runway. I hope to
We
be.
should do some modeling.
Shut the front. I've got models right here. You
But
see
we
Johnny?
should catwalk it.
Kennedy?
You know you can rock a catwalk.
Oh yeah, in 6-inch heels. Don't get it twisted. Don't let the big girl fool you. Part of my skill set is putting all this weight on that little bitty heel. But I have lost 33 pounds,
Boom.
just so you know.
Hell
Boom.
yeah.
So can't you tell? Can you
Yeah,
tell?
yeah.
Can
I
you
was
tell
just
if I
thinking,
said
Yeah,
that?
hell yeah.
we should strut
Absolutely.
a little. Now we got. Is the
Well,
camera
why
working?
can't I?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
can't I get in an egg eaters video? Like for real?
We're gonna do. Oh, never mind. No, we're off subject.
Save it for your own podcast.
Yeah, we're off
Yeah,
subject.
save it
We're
for
off
your
subject.
kidding. I'm
podcast.
just
I need to
kidding.
be a guest on your podcast.
Yeah,
It's dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then let's see who.
because
behaves.
it was really cold, and so we did a podcast over like January and December in bed. So yeah,
Yeah, I know. I remember.
I'll have to break that to Cinnamon too.
Negative ghostwriter. So let's talk about Living Proof Wear. So it's a clothing line that I've developed to break the stigma. I want individuals in recovery, or just any kind of stigma, wearing my clothing line. And it's not, and I need you to know that I've put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's not for profit. It's because I want people to empower themselves, to understand that they are living proof that recovery is real, that addiction can be overcome, that we do recover. But it's not just, it's also living proof where for me means I'm living proof that God has restored all the devil stole 100-fold. And so my shirts range from all kinds of different things. Joshua at Asheville Monogram is about to produce my Stigma Slayer shirt. I have a woman in Ohio who does a lot of my shirts, DC Graphics, for living proof where in a lot of the Jesus stuff, the Christian stuff, and which is all one for me. You know, I would not have sustained recovery without God. Period. And so one of them that's coming out is Stigma Slayer, and it's in the old DARE logo, and the back of it says, "Be a part of the solution in the stigma." My summer shirt will be in the lifeguard style.
Yeah.
And it'll be tank tops and T-shirts, and it'll look kind of like the lifeguard logo, and it's going to say "Community Life Preserver," and the back of it's going to say, "Have you saved a life today?" I have another one that's coming out like 1 + 1 = 2. So the front of it will say "Only Jesus," and the back of it will say "One life, one purpose, to the cross." I come up with these things all the time. It was truly a gift. What?
So she like, what inspired you to start this?
Stephen, you've been there since day one of this. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I sit in these conferences and trainings all the time. Knowledge is power. I'm always like doing everything I can to continue to educate myself. And the last time I was in a training, I was in like a HIV, Hep C counseling training for when you give someone a positive diagnosis. And I just started writing all these things. I get all these logos and things, and this stuff just comes to me. It drops in my spirit all the time. And I'm sitting there, and I leave the conference, and I'm like, I should really do something with this. Like I have and I'm talking about like I have this little notebook, and it's got like over here I'll have something, and it'll be squared off, and then I'll write something over here, and it's like puzzle pieces, and they're all on, and then I'll just go to another page and go to another page. Like Stephen's seen it. It's crazy. We probably went through like 50 slogans.
Yeah. So she like calls me up one day, coming back from one of these conversations. She's like, "I'm gonna start this clothing line. I don't really know where to start. You want to just like sit down and talk about it?" And so we went over to a little coffee shop, and I don't know how many hours we were there for, but she showed up with like just this notebook that she describes, and it's just like jam packed with all these little sayings and slogans, and she's like, "All right." So we spent like 2 hours like identifying the key ones and discussing.
Like where we were going to start.
There goes your phone, Ginger. It's ringing.
Oh,
That's
Jesus.
why somebody's calling.
All right, so keep going.
Discussing in depth, like, well, where did it come from? What does it mean? How could it be perceived? And I think she like narrowed it down to the select 4 or 5. So she's got select designs, the neighborhood hope dealer, which Johnny Kennedy and myself are both repping right now, as well as
this girl's gonna change the world.
This girl's gonna change the world.
That's my favorite.
Hashtag living proofwear.
Hashtag Johnny P. Kennedy.
And you're shaking the hell out of my camera.
Oh, God, is it good now?
It's shaking big time. Come on. The Wi-Fi is terrible anyways. You're not streaming. It's bogging down like crazy unless you're just recording it separately. Mm-hmm. It's rough. So, no, it's terrible. The last like 3 weeks, it just drops the live stream, starts it again, drops it, starts it again. It's just.
So I have a MiFi. I should have brought it.
Even that doesn't work. Caleb's tried his many times. There's not a good phone signal here at this location. The struggles of living in rural Western North Carolina. Right? Oh, my camera killed me. The struggles of living in rural North Carolina.
But it gives you grit. It gives you grit.
It does. It teaches you how to roll with the punches. Yep. And really, like, I feel like I'm living like 5 years in the past because I don't really understand what's out there in the real world.
Wait till you move to West Asheville, and everything will be soft and like fluffy and easy, and Wi-Fi will be super fast.
Yeah, it's crazy. I go home to visit my folks in Tampa, Florida, and it's just like.
Everything's fast
and now
shiny.
this 5G thing's coming out.
If it ever comes.
Real soon, and it's just crazy. But I'm like so used to it. I mean, when I first moved here, I couldn't even do my homework where I live. I had to spend all my time in the public library because Wi-Fi internet just wasn't available. But then like we get like used to it, and then my Wi-Fi goes out like it always does, and the freezing cold, frozen rain storms that we've been having over the last couple weeks, and I'm just like,
It's the last gasp of winter, and then we'll start seeing spring.
yeah, it's this week, man, this week. So while she's doing what she's doing, how about these oral histories that you're collecting? You said you've collected about 40 something.
I'm on 36 collected and recorded, and then we have around. Ginger's helping out with this. Everyone's helping out with this, but I have around like 24 people on the bubble. Like I have one on Tuesday evening, one on Wednesday at 10 a.m. So I'm knocking out. It's usually like I knock out like 2 or 3 a week nowadays, and then if there's a recovery place who's excited or interested in it, maybe they'll set up a day and just offer it to the people there who, if you want to come in and talk to me for half an hour.
So 100 oral histories is 100 plus hours.
Oh yeah.
Because each one, I was in there for like an hour and a half just rambling.
Yeah, Ginger was 2 hours. You know, not only Ginger is got 2 world records. One, she has the most viewed podcast on NC Raw.
in the history of the free living world.
And number 2, she is the longest oral history of the collection.
Tell them how many words it is.
It was, we
You
transcribed it.
type the transcript? You
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it?
Yeah. No, my wife.
oh
I did
my
some, and my wife did most of it. 17,000 words. It's like a quarter of a novel, a
Yeah.
good sized novel. It's like an extended short story novella. 17,000 words.
You don't understand how many like words you speak until you actually transcribe something like that.
But
So
I'm gonna chop it all
Yeah.
up. It'll be fun.
there was like a treatment center last year, and they were offering a scholarship to a student that's in recovery, and it was like an essay contest. And it was right when they did the right after we started the podcast. So I entered a submission into this scholarship, except for I recorded a podcast. I was like, well, I'm going to try to do something different. You know, even though it's an essay, I'm going to try to do something different. And I'm just going to record like a 10, 15-minute podcast, like who am I? What are my goals? What do I want to do with this thing? And, you know, where am I taking it? But then I'm going to transcribe it because, like, so I can at least say I submitted a essay as well. And it was like, I can't remember the number. I think it was like they wanted like short, like 1,500 words or something like that. I started typing this freaking thing out, and like before I know it, I'm at like 4,000 words, and I'm just like, I don't even qualify. So I just sent it to him, and of course I never heard from him again. I was disqualified, I'm sure, for all that. Living Proofware.
So, since we're talking about Living Proofware, really quick. So, I have a Facebook page, Living Proofware. So anyway, I had all these ideas. We sat down, we chose some. We created a Facebook page through my page, and but what made me create the Facebook page is after I talked to him, I went home, and I was like, well, surely that there's no domain. Like, let me Google this, and Living Proofware was like available on the Google domain, and I was like, no way. So I was like, well, let me check surely there's no Gmail for that. So livingproofware@gmail.com is available, and I'm like, what? So I was like, surely it's not on Facebook. And I Googled it, and it was on Facebook. And so I was like, OMG. Like, if it's on Facebook, then the confirmation comes in threes for me. You know, that's what I believe in, scripturally based in the word is. And so I was like, well, there it is. I need to do this. So Stephen's connected me to someone else who like helps build small businesses, who's like on the path of like making me get it all legal and right. And like it's happening. Like when I posted those up today, that they came in, people just started blowing me up. You know, people have already paid on Facebook. You can pay on Facebook. You can pay through Square Cash App. I can PayPal you a bill and ship it to you. I don't charge shipping. So we're going to we may do a couple of hoodies before the season's out, but soon I'll start to move to T-shirts. They're a little pricey in long sleeve and hoodies because people don't understand that they're very expensive when you get to long sleeve and hoodies. Like T-shirts are really cheap, but long sleeves and hoodies get really pricey really quick.
And it feels like it's high quality. It's not like the cheap screen print shirts that you'll find at like the dollar bin store or whatever.
Yeah.
These are nice, comfortable long
Yeah.
sleeve shirts. I'm currently wearing one that
Yeah,
says
and then like the
Neighborhood
women's
Dealer.
shirt is a woman's cut. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's not just a long sleeve shirt like men would wear. So the women have like something that's more feminine, that's more something I would want to wear. So that's kind of how I went with it.
Yeah, you can
those
see
are the
you
women's
can see
shirts
the cuts
behind me.
right over your shoulder if anybody's
Yeah, so
tuning
both
in.
of those are women's shirts behind me, and then the men's shirts are the ones that Stephen and them are wearing, and they're just basic long
Stephen and
sleeve
him.
shirts.
And him,
What?
Stephen and him are
this
wearing.
man, no,
Stephen
this
and,
man to
Stephen
my
and
left.
Johnny Kennedy.
Stephen and him are wearing. Thanks, Ginger.
Shut the front door.
I'm just here to support you, Ginger.
I know. I'm so grateful.
He said he was going to be on his best behavior.
I've been so
know.
far so good.
I know, because we haven't really gotten to the nitty gritty
Shall we?
of what I
Let's
wanted
do
to
the
talk
nitty
about.
and the gritty.
If you'd like to buy a T-shirt, contact Ginger through the Facebook page, Living Proofwear,
Or
and-
Ginger Living Proof.
or Ginger Living Proofwear. and
But
she'll-
my friend list is very limited. You have a limit of 5,000 friends, so you might as well go and like my page.
like the page, like the page. Grab a shirt. I think she has pictures of them all on there.
If you like and share them, we give you a discount.
How about that?
If you tag it on Instagram, social media, and we're going to ship it out to you for free. So that's a really
free
cool deal.
shipping.
Yep.
Dope.
That's the best
Yeah.
price.
So what's been going on in your life, Ginger?
Ooh,
Anything?
everything.
Everything.
So today is Monday. Wednesday will be 7 years of sustained long-term recovery for
Damn
me.
right. Yes, ma'am. How
7
about that?
years.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
That's a long time.
How about that?
And one of the reasons why, like, I know if anyone read the promo, that I wanted to come on here today, this time in my anniversary is, so yesterday was my belly button birthday, so that was my real life birthday I got to spend with my daughters this weekend, and then my clean date is March 6th. And so I've accomplished a tremendous amount of things in my recovery. Like my first podcast was all about, the trauma that brought me into addiction, the early childhood trauma I went through, and the things that I experienced, and the way that I came out of the addiction, and how God had been so good to me and shown up and brought me through some really amazing things, and restored relationships and family members and careers and employability and all the things that I had gained in recovery. And since I had about 2.5 years clean, I had not only had a child early in recovery, but I became a certified alcohol and drug counselor in Georgia, internationally certified alcohol and drug counselor worldwide, a certified addiction recovery empowerment specialist with the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. Then I moved to North Carolina and became, got my CSAC, which is a certified substance abuse counselor, and with the North Carolina Substance Abuse Board. And then I became a North Carolina peer support specialist and a qualified professional. And so those are amazing. Like that's, 20-something letters behind my name, unbelievable. But I wanted to break some of the myths of recovery. Those are all amazing, amazing, phenomenal things that happen to us when we get clean. We keep continuing to do the next right thing, and the next right thing keeps happening for us. Like doors are opened that no man can shut, and doors are shut, that no man can open. And I'm getting so nervous right now. I never do this. I'm always like, woo, because I'm always like in happy, bubbly mode. But so the last year of my recovery has probably been the most dangerous year I've had in recovery, the scariest year I've had, and one of the most painfulest years I've had since I got clean. And so I wanted to be transparent. I wanted to speak to people that that struggle with life on life's terms and don't realize that like we all do, like with 7 years clean, with 17 years clean, with 7 years clean, like life still shows up, and how do we deal with those things when they happen? And I think one of the myths of recovery is like, you know, we start to get our life back, especially after that first year. You know, a lot of times they say the first year is a gift. Now the work starts, and
Heavy lifting.
and so we get our life back, and like, you know, we get some employability, we get a job, we get stability. If we've got DSS cases or you know, breakdowns in our family, you know, pretty much after that first year, those things, you begin to truly, honestly regain those things, those relationships with your family. You're showing up for holidays. You're present in your children's life, and those are beautiful, beautiful gifts that we got. But I think that it's like a picture. Like we've got our kids back, we've got a stable place to live, we've got a job, and we think that it's supposed to be picture perfect, you know, like it's supposed to be like a drawing on the wall, and you're supposed to have all the pieces of the puzzle, and that means healthy relationship with either your spouse that you were with during the time that you got clean, if the two of you got clean together, or that you should, you know, like for women, you get the kids, you get the house, you get the stability, you get the independence. Now I need a man. Now I need a husband. Now I need a partner. I need, that's what completes the picture. You know, to say that I have arrived, that I'm in recovery, that I'm clean, that I've got everything, the picture perfect relationship, the picture perfect life is what I think we expect when we get clean. And so I've gone through, when I first got clean, my picker was broke for a long time, like so many of us are, you know. We pick the wrong people, we put the wrong people in our lives, and so I really struggled with relationships for a long time, and I had been divorced for 12 years, and in the last 2 years, I met what would become my husband. And in the last year of my life, and possibly the entire time I've been married, he's been a chronic relapser. And the last year has been really, really, really bad, and really hard for me. It's only by the grace of God, you know, but there go I, that I didn't pick up in the midst of all of his using and his relapsing. But like I've not been my normal self. The last year of my recovery, I've been the closest I've ever been in over 20 years to suicide, to just giving it all up, not wanting to do anything, feeling like I was a fake and a fraud. It's very difficult so I work in the recovery community. I help people all the time who are so grateful, you know, for the opportunity for treatment, for the opportunity for recovery, for the work that I do. I always go the extra mile. And it's like, you're so amazing, you're so amazing, you're so awesome, thank you so much for all you've done. And I go to work every day with people saying that, and I come home every night knowing that I give all I have of my gifts to people outside of my home, and I can't even keep my house straight. I can't even keep my own home in order. You know, I can't even help my husband. And so there's been a lot of revelation and a lot of surrender in this last year, you know, and I've made a lot of posts on Facebook that were emotional and, you know, admitting where I was at, you know, that I felt like I would be going through a divorce soon, that I would go back to my maiden name, that this is what it looks like when someone you love is in addiction and you can't help them. And so that's not the person that everyone knows me to be. That's not the person I was called to be. That's not my normal self. I've missed event after event after event, not shown up. And that's not me. Like, that's what I do. I show up. I'm a part of the party. Like, I'm, you know, I got to be there. I need to show my presence. I need to be involved. I need to be engaged. And so I knew when all of this really hit home for me, I called Stephen and I was like, Stephen, I need to come on the podcast and I need to get transparent about what's going on in my life and what that looks like and how the last year has been, not just so people understand what's happened to me, but that they understand that it can happen to all of us and how we deal with that and what makes us, find that place where we continue to fight, and just the darkness that it's taken me to, but the place that I'm in to grow, So ask me something, say something, I don't know.
Well, I think that takes a lot of courage for you to kind of come on and share these difficult and challenging parts of your life with myself and Johnny. And I do want to kind of lay a foundation on the direction of this conversation that we're kind of going to have, in that it's important that we talk about your perspective and what it's been like for you. I don't want anybody to get the impression that we're here to point the finger at somebody else and place blame on somebody else for their behavior, and really be open to the understanding that, like you mentioned, this type of feelings that you've had for the last few months and the kind of like conflict that you've been faced with can and will happen to all of us. And like you talked about at the beginning of, you talked about the picture, right? The family, the kids back. And, if you're being real and like really living life on life's terms, like, I don't know that there is a picture, right? Like, I think that it takes a lot of work to get to a point in your life, and it's not something that will ever end, but where you can really, like, I think you said at the beginning, talking about Caleb, you said we've had a lot of good things and a lot of challenges overcome. And so how do you, my program and the work that we do, like, internally through this internal reflection and kind of like investigation of the way my mind works, is that how do I have the same relationship to those challenges that I do to the joys, right? How do I train my mind? Like, my mind is conditioned to crave more of these pleasurable experiences and run the fuck away from the negative shit, right? But when I can actually like have a mutual kind of middle path and a non-attached appreciation, non-attached, I don't have to have it, but when I can have that same type of relationship to either experience, right? What is the worst possible scenario for me? Like, there's no, how can I relate to that situation? Unlike Bianca, on the first date that we had, I sat down at a Waffle House diner because I skipped school. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I skipped class, like the good old days.
Old behavior.
I sat down and I said, you know what? I said, no matter what happens in this relationship, no matter where this thing goes, I'm going to tell you two things that are going to happen. The first thing is my actions will not cause anybody any harm, meaning, like, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, I'm okay with that. And we are still going to be friends, and because we have mutual ties in the recovery world and mutual friends and things like that. It's not going to disrupt our normal everyday functioning. That's number one. Number two, eventually it's going to end, right? This relationship will be over at some point. It could be on my deathbed, or it could be next week, right? But I want you to be very understanding, and I want to be very clear with you that I know that is going to happen, right? I accept that. And when it does, that is the way that it's going to be. And what I've learned the hard way long enough, right? Mm-hmm. I've clinged on to all of those pleasurable experiences for so long
for you.
That it crashed and burned. But like, there will come a time that we part ways, It could be putting me in the grave, just because I'm like 12 years older than her. But it could be putting me in the
Now we
grave,
know.
and happily ever after eventually ends.
Yeah.
Right? It's the way it is. But we had that conversation from day one, right? And I think that by doing that, it kind of like allows us to understand that, so that when like things get weird,
You've already laid the course.
yeah,
Par for
when
the course.
things get weird, I'm like, hey, that's not really how we both agreed to handle things, whether it's me or her, you know.
That's
like, I can
amazing,
call-
because what a wonderful foundation you built to start that thing on.
Yeah, and so like the last few months, you've been like faced with these challenges, right? A lot of things changing, a lot of discomfort, leading to probably some depression. You mentioned thoughts of suicide, things like that. And for me, it's important to like understand that like it's okay to feel that way, right? It's okay to be depressed as fuck. It happens to all of us. Like spring break's next week. Last spring break, I took the entire week off from work and I didn't get out of bed just because I needed to do that. You know, like it's okay to be depressed, but it's not okay to just like
Stay.
fester in that and like that be your coping mechanism. What have you done? What kind of action are you taking? How are you relating to these circumstances? We hear like what in the rooms and all this, living life on life's terms, but what does that authentically mean?
Yeah.
What does it look like?
So that's so like when you first said, what you said, we didn't come here to bash anything. So that's when we talk about getting transparent. I want to get totally transparent. Like I didn't come here to say that my husband is a horrible person and he's an addict and a junkie. Like I didn't come
Yes.
here to say any of that stuff. And first and foremost, because he's an amazing person.
Yes.
And like my ex-husband that I was married to for years, where my addiction started, we have a wonderful relationship today. I'm so blessed for that relationship that we have. We get along very well. He's amazing. He's a good father. He's a good guy. But like he never got totally clean till like a year ago. Like he'd always been on something since the age of 14. And he could never understand, like, I am called to be a mighty woman of God. I am called to be a powerhouse for God, for recovery, for like for advocacy. Like I am called to that. Like it's evident. Like I'm in beast mode all the time. Like I come in with the door. Like I have a presence, and there's a reason that God gifted me with that boldness and that ability was to make a difference in this world. Like I have a gift inside of me that's supposed to be, you know, that's here to help mankind and humanity. And like there's no denying it. You know, the greatest compliment I ever get is your passion, your passion, your passion. And when you're called, like when you're called by God, when you're called, that passion, everyone says, when do you sleep? Like and I'm like, dude, I sleep. I do sleep. And they're like, but when do you sleep? And I'm like, dude, passion and a calling on your life from God will give you supernatural energy. Like I have supernatural ability to juggle and handle all kinds of things and all kind of stress and other people's problems and all this stuff. You know, I have a gift, and that's the gift that I have. And so it's amazing to be used like that, but at the same time, I kind of lost my train of thought when I was talking about that. But anyway, you were talking, so I want to clean up my side of the street. Like I have to take responsibility for my part in this. And I didn't, like I said, my ex-husband, with all that passion that I have, never supported that. Like I would get in trouble for being in church too much, or being, you know, if anything was focused outside of him, then it was wrong. You know what I'm saying? And family does come first, and I understand that more now than I ever did. But Jake is my biggest cheerleader, you know, my strongest advocate. Like when we go to things and I speak, you know, he's recording me, he's plastering me on Facebook, he speaks highly of me. Like he's an amazing person, but it's just where he is right now. And I hate when people say, well, they're just not ready, or the consequences aren't great enough, or, you know, because that's a judgment in itself of who we are in addiction. And so I didn't come here to say he's a horrible person and he ruined my life and all that kind of stuff. I came here to be transparent on my part of it.
Yeah.
And my part of it is this. First and foremost, I have worked a program since I became pregnant with my daughter early in recovery. And, you know, I started with Narcotics Anonymous. The stronger I grew in a spiritual awakening with God and building a relationship with Him, the more God, I know that God keeps me here. NA brought me back in communion with God, but God is what keeps me here. And it's like we turned our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. Like, it was all, you know, we prayed only for the knowledge of His will and the power to carry it out. Like, I got in self-will when I got married. And I know that because the worst thing, the greatest gift I probably have from God is the gift of mercy. You know, I have a passion for people. And the gift of mercy is to, you know, to forgive people even when they don't deserve to be forgiven. Is to help people even when people think they don't deserve to be helped. I have such a passion for people. Their lives matter to me. Their heart, you know, healing them, helping them, serving them, and the ones that nobody thinks deserves it. And so because of that gift, like people that have a gift like that tend to give it away to people who aren't gifted. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you spend all your time putting into people what they don't understand, forgiving people, giving passion to people, giving, you know, fighting more for people than they fight for themselves. And we've all learned, you go to school to be a substance abuse counselor. We all learn that when we fight for someone's recovery harder than they fight for it, we really need to check ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so
it's hard to watch people fail.
It's very hard. And so I saw the red flags before I made a decision to get married to him. And I thought that I was putting it in God's will because I wanted to wait and do it the right way and do it, you know, the way the word says and try to be obedient and all that stuff. And so we did get married quickly. And I thought that I was saving him. I was moving him out of Georgia. I was moving him to North Carolina. He was going to work a program like I worked. Like he was going to go to meetings like I did. He was going to get God like I did. I had a whole lot of unrealistic expectations. Mm-hmm. And I had this pride and this ego that thought that I was God, like I could fix him.
But also at the same time, you can't be like looking back on that experience and say like, oh, well, I shouldn't have done this or what if that, in the fact that like you made a decision to do something, assessing your current situation, you made the best decision for yourself and your family at that time, regardless of what happened later on. Like I just told you about the first date with Bianca, like what was the best thing for you two at that time? It was probably to do what you did. You know, here we are today. Things are different than you expected it to be, right? But does that mean that you made the wrong decision, or does that mean that the relationship is over? What does that mean? Like, right? All it means is that the circumstances changed, right? How do we come to a place where how do we get to a place where genuinely in your heart you can accept that, right?
First, I had to accept for me was so like he worked out of town. He was gone all the time. There was a lot of things I didn't know that were going on. And then there was a time where then the behavior became erratic, and I still was so naive, like didn't see it for all it was worth. Went into a fast at the first of the year, and God revealed a lot of things to me, confronted him with it, and he came clean about a lot of stuff. And he's in a sober living environment now. Like he's trying to do the next right thing. It's not always what I think his recovery should look like, but our literature says that there's no role model for recovery, and that and the scripture says to work your salvation out with fear and trembling, and our literature says that that recovery is an individual process. So like when I look at all those pieces together, like I can't judge what that looks like for him. What I know is this, that I reached a point, and this is where I get transparent and take responsibility for my stuff. So where he reached out and kind of wanted some help and said that, and I was like, well, you can't do it this way, or you can't do it that way because you can't work. And so that affects the financial stability of our household. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and then the revelation comes where, because when stuff like that happens, it doesn't sit well with us when we know we're in the wrong. And I'm like, dude, I'm killing him. Like, I'm sitting here telling him that I want him, that I don't have anything else left to give you because this is breaking me down. This is killing me. I'm so depressed. I'm not the person I used to be. I don't have any joy. I don't have any satisfaction because you're using, and I'm living in the consequences of your using and your insanity, but yet you can't get help unless it's on my terms. Like, I'm killing him. And here I am helping all these people, and I'm part of the problem with why he's still in the mess he's in. Because now I'm using people, places, and playgrounds. I'm using him to get my needs met inside my household. Like, wow. Like, whoa.
So at what point in this process did you recognize that? And then what action did you take?
I mean, it happened a couple of months ago, and I was like, dude, I can't keep, so I struggled with
meaning
it.
that recognize that in yourself.
Yeah, in myself, that like I was killing him. Like that was, I wasn't allowing him to get what he's telling me he needs because it wasn't meeting my needs. And now I've gotten so caught up in that situation that I'm using people, places, and things. Like, I'm clean, I'm not using a substance, but I'm still in active addiction because I'm using people, places, and things. Our relapse starts spiritually in nature, and I'm not trusting God. I'm trying to fix, manage, and control him, and I'm not trusting God to do what I know he did for me. Like, who do I think I am? That was a huge revelation for me. And I go to therapy. I engage in, I have a therapist. I have a support mechanism. Like, I still have a sponsor. Like, I have all these things in place. And I realized that I had compromised my own integrity. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to be with someone in active addiction, and that was a deal breaker for me. And when we are in the rooms of NA or A or anything, it's like you guard your recovery with your life, even if it means cutting people off. And as a sponsor or as a counselor, like, I would tell people that.
But then go home and
not be able to let go of that relationship, and not just for financial reasons. Like, and here's the full circle. This was the moment of total revelation, besides the fact that I realized I was killing him. Once I realized that, like, I've been the person in addiction. Stephen, you've been the person in addiction.
Damn straight.
That experienced tough love. Like when your family cut you off, or someone, cut you off, or there was experiences where people stopped engaging with you because of the choices that you were making.
Smash the brakes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I've been on the receiving end of that, and how much it hurt. And like, I was at a point in my addiction where I couldn't even feed my children. Like, I was still using, I was still selling, but I couldn't feed my children. Like, I was stealing groceries to make sure my kids ate, and like wasn't working and couldn't pay my bills, and my family like wouldn't even answer the phone anymore, and that pain, what that felt like, right?
Yeah.
But I had never been the one who had to give the tough love. And so the full circle moment for me was when I realized, like, what it must have been like for my aunt and uncle, what it must have been like for my family to cut me off, because I was having to cut my husband off. And I didn't want to stop loving him. I didn't want to stop making sure he was okay. I didn't want to stop making sure he had a safe place to sleep at night. I didn't want to stop making sure that he wasn't doing something that was going to make him lose his job, go to jail, get a ticket, have an accident, catch a charge, like die. And that broke me. Like, I was in my car squalling, and like I had to call my aunt and be like, I can't imagine what this felt like for you. Because you didn't, she said no. And I didn't want to stop, that fear. And we have that fear where we think that if I stop doing this, they're going to die. They're going to go to jail. They're going to be incarcerated. They're going to have a wreck. They're going to, you know what I'm saying? That's a horrible place to be trapped in. And it is so hard to let go and draw that line in the sand, and say, and I never realized that. Like, could you imagine, Stephen? Like, when you hear me say that, could you imagine what it must feel like, what it must have felt like for your family?
I can, because I've been there with other family members. Even myself, prior to myself finding recovery, I've had to kind of stand that ground with other family members. And relationships are tough, I was single for the first 4 years of my recovery because I thought a lot about like this scenarios, and I would have conversations with like my mentors and people in my fellowship, and I would always come back to like, do I date somebody in recovery who's familiar with the experience and has a strong foundation with their recovery and understanding of what it is? However, we're both always at risk, always on high alert of like what could potentially happen to either myself or her. Or do I date someone that's not in recovery and risk them not understanding the process and understanding the things that I must do to support myself on a daily basis? So I just threw my hands in there and said, all right, I'm out for a little bit. I'll be back, and I'll see y'all in a couple years when I'm kind of like grounded, but it's like, I don't know what the answer is.
I never wanted to date anyone in recovery.
Never.
Because I didn't want to deal with there's so many times where you feel like you're fighting both of your diseases. I can't fight his disease. I can't fight his disorder. I can't fight his insanity. I can only fight my own,
I do.
But what I know to be true is so in this place of setting boundaries, and that's the hardest thing, even early in recovery, the hardest thing I have ever done. So this last year and this situation has been the hardest thing I've ever experienced in my recovery. But one of the harder things for me to do after I got clean, and it took me years before I could even begin to do it, was to set boundaries, was to say, because when we set boundaries, we say, I'm enough. I'm good enough. I deserve this, or I don't deserve this. And our guilt and shame is so wrapped in our identity that it's so hard for us to stand up for ourselves. Like, it was so hard for me to stand up for myself. And then that gift of mercy and that gift of compassion and empathy wants me to understand. And you're trapped in this place of, I can't do this. I can't harm myself. I can't take the risk of using. I can't live with someone in active addiction. I can't keep living in this insanity. And at the same time, but I've been there. But I know what that's like. How can I leave them in this place when I know what they're suffering with? How can I, shun them? And I have, the bitterness from the pain, I have attacked him verbally in ways I would never speak to someone outside of my house. I have gotten bitter to the point of, you're never going to change. You're not done. Things I would never say to someone who wasn't in my household, but it's totally different when it's someone you love, and you want what's best for them, and you feel like you want it more than they do. And so when you ask me, how do I sit in that and how do I come through that? We always say we have to let go and let God, and that's what I wouldn't do. I would not let go. I kept trying to fix, manage, and control it like we do so much in our life and our addiction in all different areas of our life. And it's like I've had to let go and trust that either remove him or repair him or restore him or whatever's right. But I have a purpose and a reason and a destiny, and I have to stay on that path. I have to continue to grow in that pain. I can't stay stuck in that depression, like you said. And the revelation that there's something inside of me that wants to live more than I want to die, you know? And when I begin to die spiritually, I get in that place of depression. I get in that place where his behavior controls my emotions.
You know it's there, right? You just momentarily are blinded by the emotions, blinded by the depression, or blinded by the energy that's taking place. Take a moment, take a couple breaths, do whatever prayer, coping skill that you have, get a little bit of clarity to the situation. You'll identify what is the most appropriate way to respond. Mission boundaries, right? Something that gets thrown around in this recovery world all the time. It's one of those things. There's a couple things that you hear in this world that we live in of recovery, but it's one of those things where everybody's really good about talking about, hey, you need
put them in place is something totally
they're
different.
always good. Hey, they'll tell you how to do it. Hey, you need some boundaries in your life, Johnny Kennedy. Cinnamon's writing all the notes for your podcast, and you really need to take some control of your life. Okay, Johnny Kennedy? But when the ball's in my court, whoo! I want nothing to do with it.
And everyone would say to me what I would say to them, Ginger, you can't, he's not done. He's not ready. The consequence hasn't got great enough. You can't be with him. You can't live with him. You got to protect your recovery with your life. You got to let him go. You got to this, you got to that. Do you know how hard that is to do?
I do.
But if you let go and let God, and you see, the strength and the courage does not come in how you face the adversity or how you face the pain or how you face the struggle. The strength and the courage comes in how you surrender to it.
I can relate. Surrender, lean into it.
When we surrender to, the situation, then we are no longer in control. You know what I'm saying? We are allowing something else we're saying, I can't do this on my own. And we all know that we surrender to win. Like, we don't surrender to lose. And so everyone wants to say, oh, you have such strength and courage to come in here and talk about where you're at and to do what you do and blah, 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 blah. No, it's that I've surrendered to the fact that I cannot fix him. I cannot save him. I cannot change him. And I have to let go and trust God.
Yeah.
Trust a power greater than myself. Like, I have to trust God to do what's right, and either he'll remove him and take him in a different direction, or he'll restore him, or he'll fix that relationship. But what I know to be true is, like I said, I have a destiny. I have a path. I have to stay on that path. I have to keep moving forward. And even though I've been in that place of deep, deep depression, in the bed for days, and suicidality, it's not that I wanted to die and leave this world and leave my children. My God, no, never. It's that I have nothing left to give. Like, I'm so emptied out.
Why do you put that type of pressure on yourself that you owe anybody anything? Who do you have to give anything to besides yourself? Maybe your Lord and Savior. Who else do you owe it to? Yeah, you're a mother and you have responsibilities, but
I think, though, there's a power. Like, if you can see that you're working where you should be working and you're having the effects you should be having, then there's it's hard not to keep on going down that path, and to be like, I'm someone like Ginger Malcolm who can go into courthouses, who can go into recovery centers, and I can go up and talk to a judge and convince him or her to give this individual another chance, to give them a chance in recovery. That's really powerful. There are very, 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 very few people in this world who can do that. And then to be in that space and to understand that's the space you should be in, it's hard to remove yourself from that series of giving. But I mean, being an old Catholic altar boy, you know, I also know that Jesus had to remove himself at times. After, you know, he talked to the masses or he created miracles, he also had to find space to remove himself and take himself away from those scenes and find those moments of quiet and solitude. And that's the way he performed his miracles and lived his life to the fullest.
Yeah, and that's so true for me. So after one of the biggest miracles that Jesus ever performed, he went into the wilderness for 40 days. You know, he fasted and he prayed because he knew what was coming. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I know, this is what I know to be true. Like, I know, I texted you the other day and I said, I feel myself, I'm coming out on the other side, like I'm finally coming out. And I've been in this place for months. Johnny, you know, I've been in this dark place for months. And I went into a fast at the beginning of the year, and I prayed, and I'm going to tell you, like, I went into 3 days of total liquids, 7 or 11 days of a Daniel fast, which is only fruits and vegetables after 6 p.m. at night, total water all day, and then I spent the last 7 days in a total liquid fast. Like, you talk about sacrifice, like in a place of, you know, and then I get attacked, and then all this stuff happens, and then I'm in, you know what I'm saying? And then, so that's always like how it is. Like, you have the revelation, you have the victory, and then you have the attack, you know, and it's like how you go through the, how you make it through these dark places in the valleys is what you'll use on the other side in the victories, you know, to have the victory. And it's like, I know that every time in my recovery, every single time that it has been the darkest moments, lost jobs, you know, thought I was going to face some more consequences legally, like all of those moments in my recovery have always been 5 minutes before the miracle.
Yeah.
So I know that even in this place, I'm 5 minutes before the miracle, you know? And like all this stuff with Johnny that's happening and the Open Society. And like I told Johnny 6 months ago, I was like, this is going to go nationwide. And he's like, oh, I don't know, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I know it'll go across Western North Carolina. But then his contributor, then he called me after Christmas and he was like, so my sponsor for this grant was like, she wants this to go nationwide. And I was like, oh, so like I told you, you know? And so like there's huge things coming. And
yeah, there's a big stream of
and
energy.
Like here's the thing, like and this might be far-fetched, you all might not understand this, but so we can birth impatience. Like when we get impatient and we want to fix, manage, and control and fix stuff, impatience can birth the adversity, the problem that keeps us from our promise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I said, we were going to go to church. So let's go to church for just a minute.
Hold on. I hate to do this to you. I've never done this before, but I got to go. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick.
Go ahead.
Just go ahead. Y'all
We're
got
gonna
this.
keep
Johnny
talking.
Kennedy. Keep talking. I'll be right back. Take
Oh
2
my God,
seconds.
I can't believe it.
I've never done this before.
He don't want to hear. He don't look. The devil's trying to get you out of here, so you won't hear the word.
He doesn't want to go to church.
He doesn't want to go to church. So,
Let's just you wait till he comes in. I'm going to say something nice about Stephen while he's not here.
okay, awesome.
And that is like, he for me is a wise man. Like when I met Stephen for the
So
first
much
time,
insight.
and I talked to him and I listened to his story, and he was talking about meditation. I was asking about meditation and how to do it because I needed to calm down my brain. And that was when I had that vision. Like when you say a vision, it's not like you see something like it's three-dimensional, but you have an understanding in your head of a visual that is so clear. So I saw Stephen, and then I had this visual that I'd spent my life fighting against the stream, like going upstream.
That's what you told me
I
about
told
last
you
week.
being a dickhead, being just a prick, and being like fuck the system, fuck everything. I'm going in the opposite direction. And then after I hung out with Steven, I had this vision of just laying down the stream and going with the flow and not fighting anymore.
He's so that way.
And so, like, I know he's in the bathroom, and he probably doesn't even listen to his own podcast, so
No.
he'll never know this huge
He
compliment
does
I'm
listen
giving
to
him.
his own podcast. He edits them all.
He's just a really insightful and really wise, like, old soul. And
Yeah,
then-
he is an old soul. And what I love is Stephen is very, very, very deep. He's an amazing person. And Bianca Darden, you have caught an amazing catch and an amazing person. That's his girlfriend. and I hope that it is a long-term thing for you two. And I think that you're both amazing for each other. And I'm so glad he's finally reached a point where he wants to be with someone and found someone that he clicks with. And he has so much to offer and to bring to the table. But he's very, very wise. And his
here, we gotta stop.
his ability,
Stop.
has so much depth.
It's right
You
here,
know,
man.
to see things and bring revelation to things that are so powerful for me. He and I have clicked from day one. We work well together. We have a very well, like we bounce things off each other. And another thing I want to say, we decided to talk some positive,
No,
and
I-
awesome
Save it
things
for me.
about
No,
you.
I was talking.
We were talking some
shit.
awesome,
As soon as you left
amazing-
the room, and then Ginger was sticking up for you. She was like, "That's not true.
No,
He's a great guy."
He was talking amazing stuff about you,
Thank
and
you,
then
Johnny
and so
Kennedy.
now I'm going to kick into really quick. The one thing that I love about Stephen Steen more than anything is that, and you don't find this a lot in people that get on their own path and start moving in their own direction, is that Stephen remains teachable and receiving. Like Stephen and I can, it's like almost, and a lot of it's maybe just because we're on the same page, but even if not, like Stephen will be like, I'm thinking about doing this, and I'm like, well, why don't you do this, blah, 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 because I'm always like idea central. It's bad, isn't it? And I'll drop something. He's like, yeah, I think I like that. I'm going to roll with that. Like, I'm going to do that. That's good.
I don't think that any good idea, any good adventure comes from like one man's mind. And I'm all about collaborating with
And that's what's so amazing about you is that you remain receivable and teachable, because so many people like get on their one path and they don't want to take direction and they don't want to take any advice and they don't want to take any suggestions and they don't want to listen to what other people's ideas.
People are
Yeah.
shit listeners.
And
on
like
the
I
whole.
and like I've thrown out some ideas and you're just like, yeah, that's good. Like you're very receiving, and that's just always been like the coolest thing about you, like so amazing. I think that's part of your success.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate that.
So now I'm gonna drop it like it's
I
hot with what I was
apologize for
saying.
the bathroom break. I think I might have talked a little bit outside with you about this. For a class project, we were tasked to do a 10-day challenge for our substance abuse counseling class, where we were instructed to give up one habit, one part of our life for 10 days and write a paper about it. What was the experience like? And so I did no coffee for 10 days. It's like, man, I love drinking tea. I drink tea like every night before bed. I got, big piece of cake, right? What happened was, gave up coffee. That was piece of cake. No biggie. Not really like groggy in the morning. Totally like awake. Not really even a loss of energy. However, lack of focus. And what happened was, when I gave up coffee, all of a sudden my nicotine cravings just amplified. And so now that the 10-day challenge was over, I decided to roll over to Dunkin' before this podcast and purchase a latte. And then I drank the whole latte. And when I got here before we started, I filled this cup back up with coffee from out there.
Nice.
So
So
my
now you're
my
peeing.
apologies for the break.
Oh.
So I learned something from our good friend, Mr. Trevor Gates.
He's amazing. Love him.
He calls himself the recovery cyborg because he's wearing those glasses now. And he taught me something last night at Refuge Recovery, and kind of relates to this topic, in that, you hear, we were talking about catchphrases earlier, but you hear everybody say, "This too shall pass," right? And that's kind of like, in a way saying that like, okay, things are going to get better at some point, or my, life is kind of up and down, or the roller coaster of life. However, what Trevor taught me was a meditation that we did last night that he presented at the Refuge Recovery Group, and that is, this too can be here. Meaning, like, it's just all about how you are viewing or assessing the situation. So, like, this too shall pass. Oh my God, I can't wait for this wave of emotions to pass. They will pass, but I just can't wait for it to. It's like a form of craving. And this too can be here is like, okay, I'm feeling depressed. Well, what does depression feel like? And it's okay to feel depressed, or it's okay to feel the way that I'm feeling. This too can be here. It's a part of my life, right? It's the circumstances that I'm faced with today. And it can be here. It's okay. The more I resist it, the more it's going to hurt. But how do I feel it? What does it feel like? So I don't know. I just want to share that with you.
Yeah.
This
Well,
too can
that's
be
the
here.
place that I grow. I mean, it's in the storms, it's in the darkness, it's in the pain. It's in, like, there was purpose in my pain, there was purpose in my addiction, like there was purpose in all of the downfalls, the failures. Like, a failure is not a failure. Like, a failure is not a mistake. It's the stepping stone for the comeback. You know what I'm saying? It's not a failure. Like, it's what motivates you. Like you said, sitting in it and being in that place. I can stay in that place of a failure and allow it not to motivate me and to keep me from the next step. Or I can take that feeling of failure and understand that I'm not comfortable with that and allow it to motivate me to do something different, like to get out of that place of depression. And like, I can't stay in that place for too long. It's just like, I can't dance with the devil and expect not to get burned. Like, I can't hang out with people that are still using and expect not to eventually use. So I can't stay in that place. I can't stay stagnant. What we know for sure is that everything's changing. There's constant change. And, so do we accept that change and move forward, or do we stay stagnant? I can't be stagnant. Mm-hmm. If I get stagnant, then everything begins to fall apart. And that's the way I felt. Like, everything in my life was falling apart, and I couldn't fix, manage, and control it. So the strength came in surrendering to the fact that if I don't accept that I'm powerless over this situation, like, it's always about step one. We admitted that we were powerless over a disease and our lives had become unmanageable. And people just leave it there when they work the program. But in reality, if I don't accept that I'm powerless over Jake's choices and Jake's addiction and then my life becomes unmanageable. Like, I cannot fix him, and that ego, that pride, that God complex that made me feel like, even from day one, that I could change him or fix him. Like you said, you came into that relationship accepting that this is going to end one day, one way or the other. So that means you came into the relationship accepting her for who she was. And either as it began to evolve, you would continue to accept her, or it would be a place that you couldn't accept anymore and it would end. And I don't think I ever accepted that. I think I believed that I could always change it, and because I have made an impact in so many different people's lives, so why wouldn't I be able to make one in his? You know what I'm saying? Like, we lie to ourselves. And that was the revelation for me. Like, that's the transparency for me. Like, I lied to myself for so long. Like, across my ribcage, it says, to thine own self be true. Like, if we can't get honest with ourselves, we've already lost in the beginning. And the honesty with myself was that I never went into this with the right intention. Like, I get upset and I stay in this place of anger and bitterness and sadness and depression because he's using, or he's making choices that affect our family, or I'm living in his insanity, or I'm suffering the consequences of his using, like multiple car wrecks and citations and all this stuff, and I'm staying in it, but I never accepted. I went into it believing that I could change the outcome. You know what I'm saying? I went into it lying to myself. How can I blame him?
You can't.
I can't. And that's the transparency. Like, I didn't get honest with myself from the beginning. I didn't accept that this was who he was. I accepted that this is who I am, and this is what I can do to him.
Come with me.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Let's go to this. Let's have this party.
You know, and so that's the reality. That's the rawness. That's the transparency. I set myself up for this. I lied to myself. But now that I've done it, how do I forgive him in the process?
How do you forgive yourself?
Hey, that's where I was just fixing to go. How do I forgive him in the process for just being who he was when I met him? You know what I'm saying? And how do I forgive myself for lying to myself and believing? And that's the place where, like, my therapist kept saying, Ginger, I think you're so upset because you've compromised your own integrity. And not until just now, in this moment, when I said, how do I forgive myself for lying to myself, did it finally click what she meant. You know, I've compromised my own integrity because I lied to myself, not because he did what he did, because I believed that I was a power greater than himself. I believed that I could be his higher power. I believed that I could change him. And we can't do that, you know? And I go to work every day knowing that I can't change these people, but I facilitate the opportunity. And then when the chance came for me to facilitate the opportunity for him, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't facilitate the opportunity for him because it affected my outcome. Like, that's total self-centeredness. That's sick. With 7 years clean. That's some sick. That's what our disease will do to us. That's what this disorder will do to us. That's what the enemy will do to us. They come to kill, steal, and destroy. You know? And it's like, and it's cunning, baffling, and what is it? Cunning, baffling, and something else.
I'm not familiar with the language.
Yeah, anyway. And like, so, I mean,
So where do we go from here? How do we endeavor this experience, and where does Ginger go? What is the action that needs to be taken? What are the next steps for you to?
Well, I've already started to do them, because that's why I know I'm coming out on the other side. Like, I've had to let go and let God. I've had to understand that I am not the Alpha and the Omega and the Almighty. I'm not God. I can't fix him. I've had to become self-aware and self-acceptance that, you know, I don't have all that power. I've had to humble myself, you know, and the thing is like the word says, like, if we don't humble ourselves, he will humble us, you know, and he'll put you on your knees, and he has. Like, God has put me on my knees in a place where I can't do this anymore alone. And I think because I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. I wanted a husband. I wanted the perfect life. I wanted a father for my daughter. I wanted this picture perfect recovery, you know, that my impatience, you know, birthed the problem from my promises, you know what I'm saying, created this place of that's left me stagnant, you know, that hindered my recovery, that hindered my purpose, that hindered my destination, that stopped my progress. And I did that to myself. So I continue to go to therapy. You know what I'm saying? I find a way to forgive myself. I feed myself with, of course, with the word and with sermons and forgiveness and understanding that, you know, because I am a Christian and I work, you know, my program is faith-based, that if I can't forgive myself, I say that everything that tells me that he's forgiven me for everything I've done is not good enough. So now I'm telling him that he's not good enough. And I can't do that.
In this situation, what does forgiveness look like? Forgiveness is a verb. Forgiveness is action.
Can I jump in and add?
Bring it, man.
Something.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So I listen because I believe in it, but I also have people in my weird community who are like radical listeners, and then they have their like kind of their theories on why listening is important. And one of my best friends, Brett Davidson, who is a Open Society Foundation and introduced me to the grant officer who is running my grant right now. His piece of his philosophy, his theory, is that listening is enough. So he works with a foundation, and you're supposed to get results. You're supposed to like get in the media. You're supposed to make change. And his theory in the purity of listening is that listening is enough. If you go into a community and you listen to them, you've already done something. And so I think, coming through this evening, this experience, voicing your narrative out loud to two friends I just think that should just be recognized for what it is before, everyone hastens into what's next and what's happening. And I think the fact that you articulated, shared your narrative with two friends and with this larger platform, that is something which is really, by itself, nothing else changes, already is kind of an immense action. And then I also believe in like the fact that when you do articulate these things and people do listen, that it, in a way, this creates change. This is the butterfly effect. The butterfly's wing creates a hurricane thousands of miles away by letting stuff already move. And I think that, again, sitting here and sharing a narrative story with friends has probably set in stuff in motion that we won't recognize until months, years down. But being here and articulating a narrative to people who are listening is an important action in itself.
Yeah, and that's what I told Stephen was like, I know there's freedom on the other side of this. Like, secrets keep us sick. Like, when I stay in that place where I don't talk about it, where I don't share about it, where I don't take authority over it, where I don't stand up and say, this is where I'm at, and I don't let people know what's going on with me, then I have that much more potential for my back to be up against the wall, where I may make an irrational decision, like do something that's totally against, I could lose everything, and it's like, that's a place that I don't want to be in. I don't want to be in that place anymore. And that's one reason why I wanted to do this, was for me to have the freedom of saying, I've always learned that like when you speak it out and you talk about it, it loses its power over you. And then also, I've always had a social media following and stayed on that platform because it gives me accountability. So now people know what's going on with me, and so now they're checking in with me, and now they're making sure I'm okay, so I've forced myself to be engaged when I've been in this place of isolation. I've forced myself to take responsibility for my own actions, so now I have to do something different. And the transparency of the people with 7 months or 17 years clean or 7 days clean or 7 years clean, or 70 years, you know what I'm saying? Like, no matter how much clean time we have, like, we still make irrational decisions. We still make impulsive decisions. We still put our recovery in danger. We still put our life in danger. We still put our kids in danger with old behavior and choices and decisions and stuff like that. And like, I'm no different than that. Like, just because I've got 7 years clean does not mean it's pink unicorns and purple rainbows. Does not mean that it's all wonderful all the time. Just because I have 21 letters behind my name does not mean that my life, it looks like, a picture frame, that perfect picture. It doesn't, it's not the way it is. It's not reality. Reality is loss, and relationships and death are the two things that'll take us back out there quicker than anything. And that you can get in that place at any time in your recovery, and not to be afraid to tell your sponsor, to share it in a meeting, to tell your friends, to reach out to your family, to get a therapist, to like speak out on where you're at, to tell somebody. Because once you tell somebody, you have accountability, and someone's checking in on you, someone's making sure you're okay. You are breaking the bonds of that isolation, that bondage that you're keeping yourself in by not talking about it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I did this. Like, if you're struggling today, if you're facing some adversity, if you're still wanting to use, like if you got family members that are using, if you're gambling and you're not using but you're gambling, if you're not using but you're acting out sexually, if God's calling you to do something different and you don't want to surrender to God because you don't think you're good enough, like the bottom line is, like, we all deal with this stuff. And speak out about it. Talk to somebody. Reach out. Reach out to me. Reach out to Stephen. Reach out to NC Raw. Make a post on Facebook. Like, ask somebody for help. And be bold enough to say, I'm not doing this right now, and I'm in danger. Mm-hmm. And the most dangerous part that happened for me was about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago or so, maybe 3, I don't know. I watched Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder and all that stuff, and on Scandal, the White House, they're always drinking. Every single scene, there's someone with one of those fancy crystal cups and those fancy canters, and they're fixing some alcohol.
I don't know how they do it. Honestly, in real life, like you have a couple of, glasses of pure whiskey, and what are you doing for the rest of the afternoon?
I know, but like, dude, it's all, it's
Don't
all
ask me
over.
what I'm doing.
I know, right? Because it's all over Scandal, and I watch that stuff. I don't think anything about it anymore. And what happened for me was I was sitting there, and Jake was actually there on the couch, and he was looking at something. And he's like, I was like, "What are you thinking?" And he was like, "I'm looking at that alcohol." I was like, "I know it looks good, doesn't it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah, sometimes I wished I had some." And I knew in that moment when I was watching him and listening to him, and I was looking at the TV, and I knew in that moment that if there was liquor, if there was alcohol right there in front of me, I could have drank it in that moment and had no guilt and no shame. And like, I could have done it and kept on moving. Went to work, been the poster child for recovery, like, kept on moving.
Because the pain was so severe.
Yeah, because everything was so real. And I was in such a place of, like, I had nothing left to give. I was so empty. I was so numb. I was so hurt because I was still trying to fix everything. And I had this unrealistic expectation, not just in him, an unrealistic expectation that I could do that I had the power to do that. And
I would.
And so, but look, when I sat there and I knew that I would feel no shame, no guilt, no remorse, I was like, oh my God, I've got to do something different. I am truly in a danger zone, because never in 7 years of my recovery have I felt that way. Like, we all know those thoughts come through. Man, I wish I could have one of those. Oh, and it like fleets through your mind, and you're like, oh yeah, but then by Sunday I'd be on a 30-pack, and I can't do that. I would hate the thought of being altered. I don't want to be altered. I don't want to be different. I don't want to feel any different, blah, 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 blah. And like, instantly, the minute you have the thought, the tape plays out, and you're like, nope, wouldn't want to feel that way. Yeah. Wouldn't want the hangover. It would be a disaster. But in that moment, I didn't have those feelings. And that scared the crap out of me. That scared me so bad, because never have I ever felt like I wouldn't have any remorse or any guilt or any shame from picking up. Because I'm a one-chip wonder, which means I picked up one white key tag, and there's not a relapse in my story yet. Not that there couldn't be, but I don't believe that there has to be. And that is what scared me more than anything, was knowing that I could do it with no emotion. I had reached that point.
Again, we all could get to that point in our story, in our lives. Like, our brains, our minds are hardwired to take these challenging moments so we take them so personally, right? It's like, I'm doing all the right things. I've done everything the program says I should do. I've done everything my sponsor or whoever tells me to do, right? I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be treated this way. I think that's hardwired into our DNA. It's kind of like a survival deal. I don't necessarily know, but what I do know is that without like conscious awareness, it's going to happen regardless. We had a mudslide on my little mountain road last weekend. A couple days later, they closed the road. So I have a 30-mile detour to get here.
Oh, Jesus.
About
Today?
Until the 18th of March. About 40 to 50 minutes, depending on traffic. Today on the detour, they're doing construction on the detour. The little like man with the stop sign. They got it down to one lane, man stopping traffic. In two places, stopping traffic. And I'm just like driving and I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, what is this like? And it wasn't me, right? It wasn't like intentional patterns of thought. It was like my mind just like creating this story. Like, this is bullshit. I can't believe this has happened to me. I don't deserve this crap. How dare
I got stuff to do.
How dare they close my road? Like all this shit. And it's just like, as it starts rolling, I can observe it and I could like take a step back and I could see it happening and like kind of stop it and maybe not pay attention to it. Like just turn the radio up a little bit and listen to whatever I was listening to and not really acknowledge it because I got nothing to complain about. Got a beautiful cabin, a beautiful view, one great neighbor, a lot of peace and solace up there. You know, what do I have to complain about? An extra 40-minute drive for 2 weeks. No big deal, dude. I've overcome so many greater challenges than a 40-minute drive. That's 40 extra minutes of an audiobook or 40 extra minutes of a podcast, 40 extra minutes of knowledge, right? It's about how you look at the situation. Why Ginger? Why Ginger Malcolm? Why is this happening to me after 7 years? 7 years in long-term recovery. How could this happen to me?
Yeah.
Of all people,
I've
me.
asked myself that question 1,000 times.
How do you stop? You know, how do you not look at it that way? And how do you look at it like that's 40 more minutes of learning, 40 more minutes of audiobook, podcast, whatever it is. Like, how do you, it's effort and it's action, but like, what do you do, right? Like how does somebody that's tuning in and that's just heard your story, that's in a similar situation or has been through a similar situation or is in that situation themselves, right? What are the steps that someone should take? You talked about reaching out for help and contacting folks through Facebook and things like that, but like, it's hard to come to terms with that. You talked about the guilt and the shame that's associated with it, which is again, you taking it personally. You taking the circumstances of your life personally. Dude, I'm so like I am not taking life seriously. Like it's almost like on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like it's dangerous how what am I trying to say?
Lax.
Yes. Like it's not that big of a deal. Grades, oh well, it's a grade. You know, like it's just I've stressed so much in my life over the bullshit. Little freaking things like a roadblock, little tiny things like a disagreement with my boss that like I know where that road leads. So I'm going to just ride it out. It's just going to happen and it's not a big deal. It's probably hours upon hours of meditation as well. But you begin to see clearly that like none of this shit matters, dude. I do not have time for a headache, right? I do not have time to be stressed out about anything, no matter how busy my life is. What is hard? It's a difficult skill to learn. I think it is a skill. Like it takes habitual practice. And I'm not telling you that my life is perfect and that everything is just like what you describe this picture to be. I'm telling you that like my relationship to those difficulties is different after a lot of effort and a lot of work. And I've been there. Like I've been in that relationship in early recovery, you know, where the person that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with didn't make the changes that I made and chose the drugs over and alcohol over the relationship. You know, I've been there. I know what it feels like. But I also know what it feels like to learn from that experience and to take direct action immediately. And I didn't have a podcast platform at that time to just like come on here and like spew it out. I just like focused every moment of my life on that forgiveness practice and focused on like taking responsibility for my actions like you have done tonight and have done throughout this process. This isn't a coming clean party. Like, you've talked about this privately for a while now. The forgiveness aspect, the forgiveness process. You talked about mercy in the beginning of the podcast, and it's a priority to you, right? Like, you recognize it, you are aware of the importance in it. So I guess I'll circle back to that and say, what does a forgiveness look like? And even to take it a step further in this world where like everybody's getting in trouble for like the things that they say and the political or whatever views that they have, and you're right, you're wrong, I'm right. Like, what does the forgiveness process look like? But even more importantly, because I think this is different for everybody, more importantly, what does the path to redemption look like? Right?
That's a huge question. So to start with like the forgiveness process, what that looks like. All right, so I have to get back to my gift and what I give. So I give all this mercy and all this empathy and all this compassion to other people, but yet I fail to give it to myself. So then, and I want to tell people that we're humans suffering from a human condition. So then I have to sit back and look at myself and realize, Ginger, you're human. Like, you're not perfect. You're not the poster child for recovery. You're not going to get this right all the time. But what I know is that I haven't picked up. And if I pick up, there's still that hope shot. Like, I got a hope shot right now today if I don't pick up. But if I pick up, it's over with. Everything's gone. The life, the career, and it may happen quickly, it may happen slowly, but it's going to happen. Like, it's over with. Like, I still have the chance for hope and change and revelation and redemption, like you said, if I don't pick up no matter what. And like, I can't, and like when that moment came that I knew I would feel no guilt or remorse, like that would have been my next move, would be to pick up. So I know that I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? And it's like I said before, like something in me has to want this more than something wants to die. You know what I'm saying? And like, even with being in a place of depression where I just want to give up and I just want to throw in a towel and I'm done and I don't want to do this anymore, like, that's not what I was called to do. And I know that internally inside of me because, see, I've died. I flatlined twice in the back of an ambulance at the age of 15 from a suicide attempt. Like, I was not meant to go out of this world like that. I was not meant to do that. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have a purpose and a destiny and a reason. And so that's the road to redemption, is knowing that there's a purpose and a reason behind my pain, my story, like, and knowing that I can't give people what I'm not willing to give myself.
So how do you hold yourself accountable to that?
Just like this.
Yeah.
Coming out here and saying, look, I'm not okay, and this is why, you know? I think a lot of times in recovery, especially in NA and stuff, we build these relationships and we have this community and this recovery network and this foundation and this support system. And when things start going wrong in our life and we start having episodes, we expect those people to reach out to us because we've built these relationships. But yet we've fallen off the grid. Like, we've stopped going to meetings, or we've stopped going to church, or we've stopped going to events or stuff like that. And we expect these people to just come and say, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? Are you okay? Are you okay? What's going on with you? I saw a post on Facebook, like, what's going on with you? Like, that's an unrealistic expectation. I can't expect people to know what's going on with me if I don't ask for help. You know what I'm saying? If I don't say that something is wrong, if I don't take responsibility, that's the road to redemption, is like taking responsibility and surrendering to the fact that I can't fix this stuff on my own. If I could have done this on my own, just like in my addiction, if I could have done it on my own, I would have done it already. If I could have gotten out of this mess and this depression and this numbness and this on my own, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Because I'm sitting here saying, this is where I am, I'm not okay, and I don't want to go back out there. And I need help. Like, I need you to know what's going on with me so that I'm not offended because you haven't called and checked on me. Like, I can't expect you to check on me if I'm not open and honest about what's going on with me. And then I also have to understand that it's not other people's responsibility to keep me clean. It's not other people's responsibility to save me from myself. Because there will come a time in everyone's recovery where there's no sponsor, no mentor, no network, no one's answering the phone. It's just you and God. It's just you and your addiction. And what are you going to do? Who are you going to surrender to? Are you going to surrender to the addiction? Are you going to surrender to a power greater than yourself? Are you going to go to a place of meditation? Are you going to use what you know works? Are you going to go back to the basics? You know what I'm saying? And I think the revelation that you bring to the table when you say, I'm able to sit in those emotions and understand that, is, like you said, like a long period of time of meditation and understanding and acceptance. Your level of acceptance of where you are is phenomenal. Like, I have a lot of tolerance, but I don't think I have the level of acceptance that you do. You know what I'm saying? And that's like a beautiful thing to have.
What I've heard a lot of tonight is to never, regardless of the amount of clean time you have, regardless of the circumstances and the challenges and the joys and all of what life entails, regardless of any of that stuff, what I'm taking away from this conversation is to never lose sight of the basics, right?
Yeah.
Surrender into your disease, reaching out for help, staying in contact with your fellowship, and continuing to work your program. It's all the basics. It's all the things that we learned when
we first got clean.
Early recovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we enter this like realm of comfort zone, right?
Complacency.
I got this, bro. You know, I had the guys on last week. We were talking about cannabis legalization in Cherokee. You know, I got this, dude. I can smoke a joint, or I can, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this place of this like delusion.
Mm-hmm. This
delusion like encroaches on us, and the next thing you know, we're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. We're vulnerable. We're right on the edge.
And back to that, to thine own self be true, like total,
mm-hmm.
complete honesty. Like, I can't, even if so alcohol is legal, and I can't drink alcohol because alcohol was harder for me to put down than the meth. Mm-hmm. And it led me to the same place, jails, institutions, or death.
Damn right.
And so even if marijuana is legal, I can't smoke marijuana because I'm just as addicted to the lifestyle as I am the drugs. Because I can't go buy a nick and smoke it because I want the half ounce. And then I want to tell everybody, oh, I got some fire, some loud, some gas. I'm buying a quarter pound, dude. It's finna go out the door, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's me.
Yeah.
And I'm not confused about that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just smoke one. I'm finna start selling it. Because everybody's got to know what I got. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
And, like, that's the being honest with yourself. Like, you're talking about that. Like, there's no way. I can't. And if I get honest with myself, then I can get honest with you. See, I couldn't get honest with myself. I couldn't come on here and say all this stuff till I got honest with myself. And when I had that revelation, I called you and I was like, Stephen, I've got to go on here and be like, this is what's going on with me. And, like, we can get through this no matter what. Anyone that's listening to me in any kind of pain, with any kind of adversity, with any kind of struggles, with life, they've lost their job, they've lost their loved one, they've lost their family, they've lost their car, they've lost their, whatever they've lost, whoever's died, whatever's passed, whatever they think they're never going to get through, whatever they think they can't fix, manage, or control, like there's hope today. This is that hope shot. You know what I'm saying? I am my own hope shot. When I get honest with myself, I have hope that I can do something different. You know what I'm saying? And all of that's internal from, like you said, the basics, like what we learned, what to do. And that's what I have to get back to, is what works. I have to be honest with myself. I have to be honest with other people. I have to tell people what's going on with me. I have to connect. And I have to keep moving forward. And I have to remember that it's always, those darkest places are 5 minutes before the miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 minutes. I have lost jobs and then landed jobs, like made more money than I ever thought I would ever make. I have lost houses and then been given a house that's half the price of the house that I was in and way better. You know what I'm saying? Like lost car, like all kinds of stuff.
I think you are the miracle, kid. Huh? You are the miracle. We'll be waiting 5 minutes, man. You are the miracle.
You know what the definition of a miracle is?
Tell me.
It is an unexpected event in human affairs requiring divine intervention. And that's what happened to me. Recovery was an unexpected event, and it required divine intervention. Like everything that's happened to me, the miracles that have happened in my recovery were unexpected events that required divine intervention. And I spoke things over myself like, why do I keep doing the next right thing? I can't get a job. I can't go to work even though I'm clean. Like I knew why, after I had my last child, I knew why I stayed clean. But sometimes it's about, why do I keep doing the next right thing? Why do I keep doing this when when I just lost this job and they're not doing me right? They're not paying me right. They're not this. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do I keep doing the next right thing? And then...
Because you know what the alternatives are?
Yeah. But the door closes and the one that opens is that much more bigger and that much more broader and that much more important. You know what I'm saying? And 5 minutes before the miracle, for me, like, this is a place of growth and revelation because, like, there's so much more for me on the other side. Like, there's a book coming out of me. There's a book coming out of me. There's a clothing line.
We've already got 17,000 words.
Yeah. There's a book coming out of me. There's a clothing line coming out of me. Like, there's, you know what I'm saying? It's just... There's a platform for me on the state level for reentry. You know, there's just amazing, and not to mention, you know, in Asheville and in April on the 25th, I'll be teaching the science of addiction and recovery at the Addiction Professionals of North Carolina. Like 7 years ago, I stood in front of a judge in shackles and waist chains. And in a month and a half, I will present to the Addiction Professionals of North Carolina the science of addiction and recovery.
The shirt says, "This girl is going to change the world." Huh?
This girl is going to change the world.
She's already changing it.
And I'm not the only one. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I have a gift, and I bring something to the table, and this is my place, and this is my advocacy. But guess what? Every person in recovery has a gift and something to bring to the table, and a position on the team, and everyone does. Like, if I could do the same things you could do, and you could do the same things I could do, then one of us is irrelevant. That don't work for me. I got to be able to do what I can do, so you can do what you can do. And then when we all get together, we make a difference. It's about the relationships we build. It's about the things that we do. It's about the way that we empower each other. And it's about the individuals. And I'm going to tell you something. These people that come on this podcast fan my flame.
Yeah.
Philip Cooper, you know, Nick Short, like the two guys you had on here last week, like Johnny Kennedy, like those are the people that fan my flame. You know?
Me too.
They get
every
you
Monday.
fired up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
They make you motivated. They make you...
Lauren.
Yeah,
Like,
Lauren and Janai, you know, Caleb and Caitlin, like those are the people that fan my flame, you know, and they get me back on fire and they keep me on track, and it's hard, you know, to know and that's the place that I've been in, like knowing what I'm in my own personal relationship, and then seeing this beautiful love story unfold with Caitlin and Caleb on Facebook, you know what I'm saying? But also knowing and understanding the adversity that they face. You know, Caleb has children, children already. Caitlin's never had children. You know, what does that look like for them now that they have Leanne's, his mother has her children? And so there's already 6 children involved that they take care of and help raise. And then they want to get married and have their own family. So, even though I see it as what I've always wanted, do I really want 6 kids at 42 years old? I don't think so. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And imagine what, his mother, has got all of these children now. And so, it's not always, like I said, pink horseshoes and purple unicorns,
Back to the basics, baby. Well, listen, we just did 2 hours, y'all. We're going to wrap this baby up.
Way too much.
Way
Another
too much.
17,000 words.
Another 17,000
17,000
The
words.
book is half written right now.
I know, right? But you all are amazing. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of. I can't wait for episode, 77 or 107?
We'll play it by ear. I don't know. I don't have any. I don't
It'll
know.
be a 7.
I got to book. I got to see what's going on. I got so many people coming at us, man. Like,
You're getting
I
big.
probably already have 77 booked already.
Yeah.
Number 77.
That's
There's so many
amazing.
folks coming to us.
I got some more for you too.
How can let's go give us the information on how they can get a hold of you, purchase shirts, and then how can people get a hold of Johnny Kennedy to share their wonderful stories with you?
So Ginger Living Proofwear is my Facebook page, and then Living Proofwear is the Facebook page for the shirts, and then my website's not up yet, but it's coming. It would be livingproofwear.com. You can always message me, inbox me. You can pay on Facebook. Like I said, PayPal, Square, Cash App, and or just word of mouth. I'm in Asheville all the time. If you're in Asheville and you want one, just let me know. I'll come by and bring them to you. And then what else did you tell me to do besides Johnny Kennedy? And my shirts. And the Seraphim Fund group. The Seraphim group is wanting to pick up my shirts and start carrying on their label. And then I've also created some candles, all natural aromatherapy candles. I just got one of them in today. That says this girl. That says this girl is going to change the world. And so I have a couple of websites, hopeondeck.com, that's wanting to carry my shirts and sell them. The Seraphim Fund, it's coming together. It's going to be amazing. I hope I can keep up. But
we're gonna candle ourselves.
and then you can
So much
Johnny P.
candling.
Kennedy. You can send him a friend request or a message on Facebook, or if you're friends with me already, or with NC Raw podcast, you can send Steven or someone a message, and then we'll link you all together on Facebook Messenger. Anyone that you know that's in active addiction that's willing to speak, please reach out to them and see if they will come to the table. That would be phenomenal. And Johnny, I'll give it to you.
I think you did all
covered
the No, I don't. Ginger, you did a great job. Did a fantastic job, sweetie.
Look, we did 2 hours and you didn't even need these.
I
How
know,
about
but I
that?
almost did. I held it back.
That's why they're
I'm
there.
glad.
Thank you guys for tuning in to NC Raw, and thank you to the Comfort Inn for providing this wonderful space for us to record in. You can visit our website at www.ncraw.life and subscribe while you're there just by dropping your email address into the little subscription box, so that way every time we publish a episode a few days after, you will get an email with all the links to listen and links to YouTube and all that stuff. And also visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/NCRaw. If you are finding value in this podcast,
Steven wants a sugar daddy or a sugar mama.
I'm looking for a sugar daddy or a sugar mama, or $1 a month, any of the above.
Yep.
We want to be able to purchase our own recording studio, build our own recording studio, and we're going to make it a recovery community center where folks can come and hang out and
We're working.
collaborate and do all those
Are we
things.
still going to collaborate on that?
So visit our page, drop a couple dollars if you can. We're doing exclusive content through the Patreon page. Like, this podcast will be uploaded on the Patreon page tonight, and then tomorrow it'll be released to everybody else. We're doing behind the scenes stuff like we did tonight, every week. It's just extra content. So thank you guys for checking us out. Y'all have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you.